So welcome. I'm Kathy Hilster. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the school counseling department chairperson. I'm excited to be here delivering this program in person without wearing a mask. It feels like it's been a really long time since we've done this. We did do the January program. Hopefully a lot of you were able to do that. That was virtual because COVID was spiking a little bit after the new year. So we this is like part 2 of the January program that we did kind of to kick things off. So just some introductions to the department so that everyone knows who the counselors are. Our staff has remained mostly intact with one change, but our A-house counselors are Mrs. Avery, Mr. Cavacci, Mrs. Bavacqua, and Mrs. Lundell. In B-house, we have Mr. Barbado. We do have a change for students who had Mrs. McEnany. Ms. Citron Henry has come back to us, so we're thrilled to have her. She's taken over Mrs. McEnany's caseload. She did 2 long-term subs with us. She did a long-term sub with Madison. We stole her from Brookfield High School and got her back because she's wonderful. So your children are in really good hands. Even though it is her first year with the seniors, she'll do a bang-up job, I'm certain of it. Mrs. Skelton and Mrs. Thompson are the B-house counselors. And then in C-house, we have Mrs. Codd, Mr. Broccolo, Mrs. Zakum, and Mrs. Bavacqua. It does have some students in C-house as well that are all outside and are available to speak with you. In addition, we have Mrs. Collins, our College and Career Center counselor, who is a counselor for all students, who does so much amazing program for all of our kids. We are really very fortunate to have her. So to kind of just dive right in, we're here, it's senior year, it happens really quickly and all of a sudden we're upon us. I will say this is my 25th year as a professional going through this cycle, and it is my first year as a parent. I have a senior as well, so for the first time I can truly 100% empathize with what you as parents are going through, and for the students too, I can see it through a completely different lens now going through it as a mom. So it's super exciting. It's like a really cool time in your life to be exploring what comes next. There's a lot of feelings that go on during the process, and you just have to kind of take it one step at a time, and you will get through it, I promise. Next year at this time, you all will be doing something productive. That is our goal as the counseling department at Trumbull High School. We want to make sure that every student has a solid plan that meets their needs. And so we will make sure that you get through it. But I just want to briefly, this will be a review for some of you, but everyone's in a different place, so some of this will be review and some of it will be new information, so I just want to briefly go through what your options are really going to be. So community college is the most affordable option for college. It is free for Connecticut residents. So for any student who is unsure, maybe needs a little bit more time to mature, maybe didn't work to their fullest potential in high school, they can go to community college completely free if they go straight out of high school. If they go to another college for a semester or a year and they maybe need to come home for a variety of reasons, the free option is off the table. It is only free if you are a first-time college student. So there is a full packet of information, there's a page of information in your packet about that. But for those of you who are kind of thinking your child might need a little bit more time, community college is a great option, or if you just want a 2-year program, they really do have a variety of choices. We have 3 community colleges in commutable distance, Housatonic right in Bridgeport, Norwell Community College, and Gateway. So there's some vocational programs there as well. If you were thinking of vocational or a tech school for your child, you may want to look at some of the community colleges and see what their programs are as well, because they've got some really good hands-on things. Particularly Gateway has a whole automotive program, so they can get that kind of training absolutely free. There's open admission. You just need your diploma. There's no SAT scores or anything like that. So, everyone who wants to go to school really can have that option. And we see a lot more students who really could have many choices to go to competitive 4-year schools that may choose community college because it just makes sense for 2 years. And then the majority, as long as you're taking kind of mainstream courses, the majority of the classes that you take are transferable to 4-year institutions. And with the state colleges, there is a guaranteed transfer program. So I just want everyone to kind of be aware that Connecticut is committed to free community college. Trade school and apprenticeship programs are also very popular. Students can become an apprentice right out of high school, even as high school students. On our website, we have a link to the state apprenticeship program, so they can get paid as part of their training being an apprentice. So that is very exciting. Mrs. Collins, our career counselor, does have some contacts with the state where she can put kids in touch. If they are interested in learning a trade, going into the state apprenticeship program really could be a way to go, and they get paid training. We have students who are choosing the military. It's not a hugely popular, but we do have about a half a dozen to 10 kids every year that will choose the military. You would reach out directly to your recruiters. Some students will go directly to work. And then we have students who will choose to take a gap year. And a gap year isn't a year off where they're laying in the basement kind of playing video games all day, but a gap year would be considered doing something very productive with a mission and a focus. So that is an option that is becoming a little bit more popular. Some students go through the whole process and then will defer their admission for a year in favor of taking a gap year to do something interesting or exciting. So you can inquire about that with your schools. Okay, so the most popular option at Trumbull High School is the four-year college route. Over 75% of our students do go to four-year colleges. There are over 2,500 four-year colleges in the United States with varying degrees of competitiveness. So you will often hear about the top schools in the nation over and over and over again, like the same 50 schools over again. That's who they're talking about on the morning talk shows. That's what you hear about when you read the articles about it's impossible to get into schools. The admit rates are, less than 10%. That is really a very select number of colleges. So I want to put your minds at ease that there are very many wonderful schools out there in which your children can get accepted to that may not be Duke or Yale or UPenn and those schools that you just hear over and over again, but that are really good, solid places where students can get an education. So we really, through this process, encourage you to be open-minded about that and to look for a school that's going to be a really good fit for your child, both academically and financially and socially. So you want to look at all of those parameters as you're choosing your school. People often will get intimidated by the cost of private colleges, and so I do understand that completely. What I do encourage you is to not disqualify a private school because of the cost, because often the private colleges will give good amounts of aid and scholarships. For our kids, it tends to be more scholarship than aid, and the cost will become almost equivalent to going to a state school. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't eliminate any of the private schools based on cost alone, because you may be surprised that they wind up coming in at a similar price to our state schools. Within the Connecticut State College system, we have UConn as our main flagship university. UConn is competitive. It is not the UConn, for the parents here, it is not the UConn that we went to, or our friends went to, or were accepted to, where half of the class could easily get in. They really have become much more competitive. They are looking at students mostly in the top quarter of the class, and at Trumbull High School, the top quarter of the class has about 3.9 and above. So not to say if you're below that you can't get into UConn or be considered, but the top quarter of the class is that strong of a pool. So just keep that in mind. It's not the safety school that it might have been 20, 25 years ago, okay? But in addition to the main campus at UConn, they do have regional campuses throughout the state that they are continuing to promote and really build up. The closest one is Stanford to us. They have lovely dorms. It's definitely not the full campus feel of UConn stores, but students are able to commute. They are able to live closer to a city environment for internships, and they can transfer to stores after 2 years if they want. So there's also a guaranteed transfer program with that. So if you're really feeling UConn is the way you want to go and you don't get in, they may offer you a regional campus. In addition to that, we have Southern Connecticut, Central Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut, Western Connecticut State University. They are all part of the state university system, and they also very seamlessly will transfer to the University of Connecticut. So just to kind of keep that in mind. We are running a field trip to Yukon Stanford, so if there's any student who's interested in attending that, they should sign up on actually the permission slips are in the College and Career Center. They are signing up for them now, so they can come in and pick those up. So at this point, at the beginning of senior year, you're all going to be in a different spot. And so this is very generic, and for some of you, you're going to pick up where it's most important. Right now, visiting colleges is a really important thing, okay? If you're not celebrating and have the opportunity to do so, you could use the Jewish holidays that are coming up and Columbus Day as days that are off to set up college visits. I would set them up ahead of time because they do fill up quickly. You just go to their website and indicate that you want to do a visit. So if there's any schools that you've been thinking of visiting, those are good opportunities. The SAT day, the PSAT day, in which the seniors don't have to come to class, is another day, which is a good day to visit. And that is, I don't have the date up there, it's the Wednesday in October, it's the second or third Wednesday in October, and it is on the district calendar. Open houses give you an opportunity to visit as well. Those are typically on the weekends. And what is good about an open house and makes it different than a regular visit is that everybody is there. So you're going to hear from, you know, the presidents of a lot of different schools. You're going to hear from faculty from individual programs all in one versus just getting a student tour. So you get to see a lot more on an open house day. College fairs are available as well. A lot of you have already probably attended them, but if you're still unsure and you want to get more information in given a short amount of time, you can go to the college fair. There's many coming up right in the area. So we have our college fair that we sponsor is September 28th at the Hartford Healthcare Amphitheater. And then the Shelton High, St. Joe's High, and the Christian Heritage fairs are not listed in your packet. They are in the announcements, but they are coming up. So Shelton High is September 19th, St. Joe's September 29th, and Christian Heritage is having a Christian-only college fair on October 6th. And I just received notification this week that that is open to the public. The last couple of years, they have kept it to just their schools because of COVID. We have colleges are coming to visit Trumbull High School, so we have over 100 are booked already. Those are wonderful opportunities for students to really get some face time with the reps. So often, we have 1, 2, or 3 students that come in and sit and meet with the rep from an individual college. So I would recommend that if you have the chance to sign up and come in, if there's a school you really want to go to, your top choice school, even if you visited, you know, everything about it and you feel like there's nothing more for you to learn about it, it's great face time with the rep, and that can be very helpful because the people who are reading applications are human and they try to, you know, recruit and they want to talk to people and they want to know who's interested in their school. So schools that you want to see if they're coming, go and visit them. We have, so the list of who's visiting is on Naviance, and also in the class of 23 Google Classroom, there is a video for the students to watch with all the directions and all the information about the college visits. I'm going to stop for 1 minute. For the class of 23 Google Classroom, for the students, I said it to you guys in your assembly at the beginning of the year, I'm going to say it again, and as parents, if your kids aren't here, remind them, please turn on the notifications, because we push a lot of really good information out through the class of 23 Google Classroom, and students don't read it, they don't see it. Like, we want them to see and read things, and now the seniors have a privilege of not having to go to homeroom, so they're not even getting the announcements. So checking that class of 23 classroom is really important to be on top of opportunities and to not miss out on things that are going on. So I just want to put a plug for that. Okay. Okay, so at this point in senior year, there's some of you who may have your list, and there's other of you who your stress level may be going up really high right now because you're not sure exactly where you're going to be applying, and you may be somewhere in the middle. Whatever it is, you still have time, so don't stress about it, but it is the time. If you are like, oof, I haven't really done anything, it's the time to get started, and you have a couple months to get it going, but I do encourage you to really start thinking about it, especially if you want a 4-year school, okay? So you want to be figuring out the wheres. And when you figure out the wheres, you really have to think of each school individually and honestly assess, where does this school fit for me, okay? Is it a reach? Is it a match? Is it a likely school? And how do you find that out? So you're going to look at the admit rate. So what percentage of students are admitted to the school? That's a big one, okay? Lots of schools are test optional, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you are going to want to look at the SAT scores and just get a sense of, you know, where your SAT scores, even if you're not submitting them, where they kind of fell in relation to other students, to get a sense. If you're a student who got a 10-10 on the SATs and all the schools that you're looking at, the scores are like 650 to 710 is the mid 50% range, that school is probably going to be a reach for you, okay? So it'll just kind of help you to get a sense. But looking at that admit rate, looking at your grades, and getting a sense of what the averages were, looking at the Naviance scattergrams and comparing yourself will give you an indication of how likely am I to get into the school, and you want to answer that honestly. Any school with less than 20% of students admitted is pretty much a reach for everyone, okay? So keep that in mind, because that is a low admit rate. So if it's below 20%, I would put that in the reach column, okay? And then you're gonna have your schools that are matches. So your target match schools. So that's where you're nice, solidly fitting into the demographics of what they're looking for in a student, okay? So you wanna definitely have your match schools. Matches are certainly not guarantees, but you can feel pretty comfortable about it. And then you also want to have your likely schools. So that's where you know, okay, if all else fails, this is going to be the backup plan. But you don't want that to just be an academic likely. You also want to think about the financial part as well. The most heartbreaking thing as a counselor is to see students who really have their heart set on a school, or they find, you know, their likely schools are all schools that are very expensive and they really didn't get a lot of financial aid and the family really can't afford it, and none of that really comes out until March when they have to start making a decision, and then they're kind of back to square one, and that is extremely stressful. So you want to think about, you know, likely, am I going to get in, and are we as a family going to be able to afford it? And that's going to be very different for each individual family. The other question we get is how many? So that depends. It's going to depend on the individual. If you're looking locally and you feel very confident that you are well exceeding the admission criteria for some schools that are right in commutable distance, you may only apply to one school, you know. If you love Southern, you have a very high GPA, you feel like you qualify for the honors program, your family can afford it, and you're going to commute, maybe you're just applying to Southern. You don't have to make yourself crazy and feel like I have to apply to 12 schools because my neighbor is applying to 12 schools. That's not how it works. But if you are looking all up and down the East Coast and you're not really quite sure, you know, of what you just want, and you still need some time to decide, you may be up more in that 10 to 12, 14 at the top number. So it's going to depend. I would strongly discourage anything more than like 14. We sometimes have students that are applying to 25 and 30, and that just gets to be a lot of schools, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of money, because each of those schools have application fees. So you really want to be focused, figure 3 to 4 in each of the categories and see where that lands you. You may not have 3 reaches, that's okay. So it's going to be different for everyone, okay? And also just remember that meeting or exceeding the college admission standards that are published on a school's website does not guarantee admission. So again, if the school accepts less than 20% of the students, those are the schools where you have to think about that. They're really taking a deep dive to evaluate each student piece by piece. Then you're going to decide how to apply. So you're going to see all these terms thrown around: early decision, early action, rolling, regular admissions. Those are like the most common, and then some schools will come up with their own fancy name for their admission program. So you may see things that are one-off. So reading closely is important, but just to really quickly go through it, early decision is for students who know without a doubt that if they were accepted to a school, that is where they would attend. And also that they can afford it. Because when you apply your early decision, you are signing a contract saying that I promise to attend if I'm admitted. And the student signs it, the parent signs it, your counselor at school signs it, to basically validate the fact that they have explained what early decision means and that you know what you're getting into. If you apply early decision and you get accepted, you have to withdraw your applications from the other schools. So you don't always know the outcomes, okay? You do get an answer early, so you can have some time to, figure it all out. So you apply early, you get an answer early, but you are promising to attend. Now, people would choose to do early decision because it could increase your chances of being admitted. If you look at admit rates for early decision pools tend to favor the applicant a little bit more. But you do need to remember that in early decision pools, you often have a much more, you have kids that are really on the ball, that they're very motivated. They tend to probably have higher GPAs and test scores in the general application pool. Also, recruited athletes are usually early decision. So that can really drive the number depending on the school. So if it's a big sports school and you're looking at, wow, these early decision numbers really look like they work in my favor, and you're not 100% sure that early decision is right for you, but you want to kind of hedge your bets because it could increase your chances, remember about the athletes, because they are in that pool and that does make a difference. Okay, early action is by far the most popular way that students at Trumbull High School apply to college. Early action is non-committal, so you're applying early for general early action. Like there's single choice early action, but for regular early action, it's non-committal. You apply early, you get a decision early, you can apply to many schools early action, and you have until May 1 to decide whether or not you're going to attend. So that is very popular. Most of our students have their stuff out by November 1st, which is when many of those deadlines are. So if you're able to do that and you're ready and I would recommend it. Having your stuff in by the early action deadline is definitely a good idea. So it is possible that you would be deferred as an early action or early decision candidate, which would mean they need more information and they're going to look at your mid-year grades to make a final decision. So then you would be put in the regular pool. If you were told no during early action or early decision, it's no. You can't then reapply regular. Like if you're told no, then you're told no. Okay, so just to remember that. And then regular admission has specific deadlines, and admission decisions are made on or about April 1. I would try to encourage you to apply on the earlier side and not wait until April to be putting your applications in. You don't have to do it tomorrow, but being like before November 1st, I think is helpful to be at the early part of the pool. Rolling admissions, completed applications are reviewed upon receipt, and the colleges will send you decisions as they go. So you could apply and find out 3 weeks later whether or not you've been admitted. And they keep going until their class is full. So that's what that terminology means. Okay, and then the types of applications. So students are going to apply generally in one of 3 ways. They're going to use either the Common App, the Coalition app, or they will use the school's individual application. Schools do not discriminate based on how students apply. They look at each one of the applications equally. So it doesn't matter, don't feel like, oh, I should use their application instead of Common App, that will give me an advantage. It will not. I've been hearing that same mantra over and over again for years and years, and I've never seen anything to make me think that admissions officers are lying to us when they say it doesn't matter. So the Common App is definitely the most common one. Over 800 colleges accept it. You do the application one time, and then you do all your demographics, you do your essay, all of that, you do it one time, and you can submit it to multiple colleges. You do have to be aware, though, that there could be additional questions. So you want to go in and you want to check for your schools to make sure what are the additional questions that I may need to answer for each school. So say you're applying to Syracuse and Northeastern and Boston University, each one may have an additional supplemental question that they would like you to answer. I have found that more and more schools are asking the extra questions. In the past, there weren't as many of the extra questions, but I think just post-COVID and so many tests optional, they're just looking for more information so that they can more holistically evaluate students. So be aware of that. The Coalition application is accepted by about 100 schools, maybe a little bit more than that. It's not very popular. We do have once in a while a student who will choose the Coalition. For a while, University of Maryland was using it exclusively, but they have gone away from that and they're now back on the Common App. So you should be fine. You don't necessarily have to use it, but if for some reason you like the questions better or the format, you are welcome to use the coalition application if your school accepts it. And then individual schools do have their applications. Anybody who is applying to Georgetown, they're one of the last holdouts who's not on the Common App as a popular application. So if you're applying to Georgetown, you're going to need to use their application. But for the most part, everybody is on Common App that most of our students apply to. So transcripts will be submitted through the school. I'm going to talk about that via Naviance. And our counseling secretaries are amazing, and they manage all of this for the kids. So we'll talk about that. So your typical deadlines for the early decision, early action are November 1st, 15, December 1st. Just pay attention, each school has their own. Regular admission is generally in January, but there is nothing to stop you from applying in November if you're applying regular decision. So even if you don't want to go into an early program, you can still get your stuff in early. And then the rolling is ongoing. So just pay attention to both the college and the Trumbull High deadlines. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, so we use Naviance. So Naviance, actually I'm going to talk about the deadlines of Trumbull High for just 1 minute. You have it, and there might be a slide, but I'm not sure in case. You have in there, we have a 15-day window for transcript requests. So we want to know where we need to send your transcripts 15 days prior. So there's a sheet in there that kind of outlines that, and I am going to go through the process of what that is, but to just be aware of that. Okay, so Naviance. Naviance is a program all your children have access to. You can link to it through the Trumbull High website, okay? And that is where we warehouse student transcripts. That is how we communicate with colleges. That is how teachers send their letters of recommendation. You can do general college searches in there. They do have a resume template. I'll be honest, I don't love it. I think you could probably do something better on your own and in a blank document, but if you're having trouble or you want to try to figure out how to structure a resume, Naviance does have a template in there. We put all of the scholarships that come to Trumbull High, we load them in Naviance. So when kids want to know what scholarships are available, they can do a scholarship search through Naviance. So that's a place where they want to go. There's career information, summer programs. The acceptance history of Trumbull High School students is probably the most valuable information in Naviance. So there's these really cool scattergrams. It will show you students who have recently applied from Trumbull High, what their GPA was, what their test scores were. Obviously there's no names, but that information is all charted out, and you can compare yourself to Trumbull High students, which does give you a little bit better of an idea of where you might fall rather than looking at national data. So I encourage you to use Naviance for that specifically. Okay, so the common application and Naviance need to be matched though in order to make sure that everything gets to the same place. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're using the same email address in your Common App and that you put it in Naviance when you set up the match. It's a little bit complicated and can be confusing, so we set up a checklist and it's in your packet, and if you follow the checklist step by step, it will take you through the match program. I'm not going to go into it in all the details. You have the checklist though, and follow that. And that will make sure that your Naviance and your Common App are linked together. That part is really important, and that is the first step. So you're not going to be able to submit anything until you have connected the two. Okay, so in our application process here. So the first thing is on the front page of your packet, there's the permission to release records, okay? We need a signed release before we will send anything out to colleges. So you can fill that out tonight and hand it in as you walk out the door. This way, it's on record, you do that one time, and we are good to go. So that's the first thing. Then there is an electronic transcript request form that is on the website. So, and it's by house. So there's an A house one, a B house one, and a C house one. And the students fill that out. They're basically just putting in the colleges that they're applying to. So the students fill out the electronic transcript request form. That's step 2. They have that electronic form needs to be submitted at least 15 school days prior to the deadline and when they want things sent. Now, you can send your stuff whenever you want. A lot of people get stressed out about timing to make sure that the high school transcript and letters of rec all get there at the same time. It doesn't matter. If you're ready and done, you can send your stuff that's fine. And you don't have to wait to be done to put the request in. So if you're still working on your applications, but you have an October 15th deadline and you need to get your stuff in, make sure you're handing it in to us 15 days prior, even if you're still finishing things up. It's fine. They can get there at different times, they start a file for you, and then when everything's complete, that's when your application is set and ready to go to committee, okay? So, right now, November 1 is a very popular deadline. That means you need to have your transcript requests done by October 11th, okay? So when you submit the transcript request form, it starts a process, okay? So we will be sending to each of the colleges a copy of their transcript, a school profile, which gives the colleges a snapshot of Trumbull High School and what our average test scores are, our GPA distribution, the courses we offer, what the scores on AP tests are. It gives a lot of information to colleges so that they can put the student in the context of their school. So we offer 24 AP courses. If you took one in a school that offers 24, that may not work favorably. But if you've taken 12, they're able to see like, okay, the student really took a lot. And that would be, in a situation of like a top tier school. So it just gives the college some context, okay? The counselor letter of recommendation will go with the transcript. Any completed teacher's letters of recommendation. So if you had a teacher who you asked over the summer, before summer started, they wrote the letter, they uploaded it to Naviance, and it's there, we're gonna send it. But it may not be there yet. The teacher may not be finished writing. So what will happen is when the teacher is done writing, when they go in, they will then submit it to the colleges. But when we are there, we will submit it if we see it. There is a secondary school report that the counselor will fill out that goes with the recommendation. And then that all is sent initially. And then in February, we will send a mid-year transcript with mid-year grades to all of the schools that you apply to. So I'm gonna say that one more time, especially for the students. We will be sending a mid-year transcript with mid-year grades for to all of the schools that you've applied to, which means senior year really does matter because a lot of schools are using that in the context of their applications. So I know sometimes kids think like, oh, it's senior year, I already applied, it doesn't matter if my grades start to really fall, but those mid-year transcripts are sent and are used as an evaluation tool. Some colleges will ask for first quarter grades. We do not do that automatically. So if the college wants to see first quarter grades, they may contact you and say, please send first quarter grades. A lot of times they will take a copy of your report card if you download it from the portal and you can send it yourself. But if you would like it sent officially, we can do that as well. And you can just come into the office and see the counseling secretary and they will take care of that. But we do not automatically send first quarter grades. Okay. So the letters of recommendation. With teachers, usually two letters are required, okay? You have to talk to your teachers in person. Don't just like send them a Naviance request. Don't send them an email. They're not obligated to write letters, so please see them in person, be polite, talk to your teachers and ask them about writing. If you have not asked a teacher for a letter of rec up to this point, please do so sooner than later because they need time to work on it. So the teachers will send the recommendation forms directly to the colleges. You will not see them. They go from teacher to college. Give the teacher as much notice as possible and don't forget to say thank you. Send thank you notes to them, let them know where you got in later on. Okay, they want to know the outcomes. They're invested, they care. The counselors will be sending a letter for each student. So when the first transcript request form hits in the counseling office, then you should also make an appointment to meet with your counselor. Okay, the counselors will sit with students for a full period. They will actually want the students to complete a self-evaluation and Naviance to answer some questions ahead of time. We give the parents an opportunity to give some insight as well. So there's a parent self-evaluation form that is on our website. You can fill that out and send it in with your child for their interview letter, for their counselor meeting for the interview. And they can bring that, okay? So we will take parent input and take a look at that. So that's located on the website. If you would like, the parent piece is not required, but the students, we do want them to finish the self-evaluation. The counselor letter is automatically sent, and I have to tell you, our counselors here, you're really fortunate. They do a bang-up job. They do an excellent job writing really good letters. Even if, I know I hear sometimes from parents like, oh, well, my child only really sees their counselor once a year, they don't really know them that well. They do a good job in that meeting to really ask the right questions and solicit the information that they need to give the colleges what they're looking for. And many of our counselors know the students very well. So the counselor letters here are really top notch. Okay, so the SAT, ACT is getting a little bit more complicated as time goes on in this test optional world that we live in. So when should you submit test scores? That seems to be the big question that I get all the time. Okay, so number one, if the school requires them, you have to send them. So that's a no-brainer. If the schools are in the upper range of the scores for admitted students, then you would want to send them, okay? I also hear people saying that they're feeling stressed out because if they don't send scores and they're like, okay, then they may be trying to hide something, and is it better to send them because they don't want them to think that they got an 800 when they got an 1100, and is the 1100 good enough? And it gets complicated, and you really have to think about that. I will tell you, of the freshmen that are sitting at UConn, at stores right now, 65% of them did not submit test scores. So colleges are taking students without test scores. So you really only want to send them if it's optional, if it puts them in the best light possible. And finding out what those mid-test scores are is a good way to do that. And I'll be honest, if you go to any of these college fairs and you're talking, especially the reps from the private schools, where there's like a little bit, it's smaller and they really kind of are diving in probably a little bit deeper than the state schools with looking at the applications, you could ask them. You know, it's not your like formal application. So if you're standing at a table and talking and saying, you know what, I have a 550 and a 610 are my SAT scores. Do you think I should submit them? You could say that. They're not gonna like write it down and bring it back to your file. They're gonna have no clue. So it's okay at the college fair or during the rep visits to ask for their opinion, and they will tell you. If there are some colleges that will require SAT scores or ACT scores for scholarship consideration, so you want to consider that as well if you think you might be in the running. So if you are sending them, the colleges will require official scores be sent directly from College Board or from ACT. So there's a shift that some schools are now allowing students to self-report, and then if they get admitted, they send them later. So you have to read the fine print, okay? We do not send test scores. We don't report them on transcripts. That is completely on the students to make that decision if they want their scores sent or not. And if you do want to take an additional SAT, there are some that are coming up, or an ACT. And there's information in your packet, or you can go right to the website. Okay, the essay is really going to be the heart of the application for most of the students, okay? The transcript and the essay, those are the two biggest things right now. So, and what's our goal there? So the college essay is the opportunity for colleges to get to know students a bit better, okay? You want to be sure you're answering the question that is being asked. So sometimes students will write a really good essay and then they're applying to a school that has a very particular question and they're using the essay that they really like, but it doesn't answer the question. That's not a good thing to do. So make sure you read the question and any essay that you're using, you're answering the question, okay? And you want to be reflective of who you are as an individual. Ask a couple of people to read it. Not too many though, you know, 1 or 2 people, because you will start to get so many different points of feedback, you're going to make yourself crazy. So if you ask 6 different people to read an essay, you're gonna get 6 different people's take and perspective. I would say keep it to 1 or 2 people that know you really well, and that can help you with that. But other than that, I wouldn't hand it off to the whole world because it'll just become a never-ending cycle and you'll never get it finished. I said that already, schools that use Common App or Coalition may have supplemental essays. Here at Trumbull High, a representative from Sacred Heart University will be here to review student essays for them and give them feedback. So that's a great person to get feedback from because they are a professional that reads essays all day long. So you can, that is happening on October 4th, 6th, and 7th. You can sign up at her website and you just have to email her a copy of your essay by September 27th. If you would like to do that. And really, everyone should be jumping to do that because that's a great service. Okay, resumes may or may not be required by colleges, but they're a good thing to kind of have at this point as you're getting older. Some of the teachers who are looking for letters of recommendation may ask for a resume so they have an idea of what you've done. It allows you to show accomplishments and activities. What you do not want to do is, if you have a good resume, that's wonderful, and you can submit it as a supplemental piece of information, but do not write on the application when they're asking you for your activities, or, you know, and that, do not write "see resume." Do not do that. Make sure you fill out the Common App in its entirety, because the reps are reading quickly and they know where to go to get the information on their application. Resumes are all formatted differently, and it could, you know, it won't work to your advantage. So if you want to put additional things, you can put the resume, but make sure that you put your top 10 activities on your Common App. They only allow for 10. If you have 18 things, that's fine. You can put it on a resume and attach it, but really they are limiting it to the 10 that are the most important to you, okay? And for scholarships, you may need your resumes for that as well. So the site is an overview, and on your surveys here, it's asked, what would you like to know more about? And every single time I get financial aid. Financial aid is a topic entirely unto itself. We have a night devoted to it. We have an expert from Southern Connecticut State University who will meet virtually with parents on September 29th at 7 p.m. So I encourage you to join that. We'll send out a video ahead of time to watch. It's about 20 minutes, it's not that long, and then he will do a Q&A. It can take, you know, an entire night just to talk about financial aid, but I do want to just kind of give you some bullets. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It opens on October 1st, and that's when you are eligible to be able to start to fill that out. You do not have to fill out financial aid applications at the same time as college applications. So you can get that in before, it doesn't matter, okay? I encourage you all, even if you think, I'll never qualify for aid, I hear that over and over again, especially if you're applying to private schools, I would put it in. You never know, even if you get $1,000, $3,000, every little bit helps, okay? So I would give it a try at least your freshman year and see where you land and what happens. There is a tool called the FAFSA Forecaster, and you can go in and do like a pre-FAFSA and get an idea of what the college will cost for you, because what is published are what are called sticker prices, and really every single person tends to have a different price for a college. So they're going to ask you as part of the net price calculator, so you could do FAFSA Forecaster or you could do the net price calculator, and the net price calculator, each college has one on their website. So when you do that, you'll get an idea for you with your students' grades, with your income and all of your information, what the school may actually cost for you and not just the published sticker price. So that's a really good tool for families, okay? In addition to the FAFSA, there's something called the CSS profile, and that is put out by College Board. That is an additional financial aid application that goes a little bit deeper than the FAFSA. Many of the private schools do require that. I would encourage you to look and see if your college requires it, and if they do, you definitely want to be filling it out. So scholarships. I will tell you that individual colleges are where the biggest scholarships tend to come. So you may see, very pleasantly, students are often surprised, congratulations, you've been admitted to such and such university and we're offering you $12,000 a year presidential scholarship or something like that. Many colleges will offer student scholarships, so that's really good. You are more likely to get a scholarship from an institution or a larger scholarship from an institution if you are at the top of their applicant pool. So when you're looking at, your reach schools and your match schools and your likely schools, those likely schools are the places where you really are most likely to get good money. So keep that in mind as you're applying, and there are really wonderful schools out there that could be considered likely schools for our students where they can be very happy and have a very productive college career. So I encourage you to take a look at that, because that is where there are many students get their money from, okay? In addition, in March, we're gonna put out a scholarship bulletin, so be on the lookout for that. That is only for Trumbull High School students, so really, you should be applying for as many of those as possible. We sit in a committee and we decide who gets those scholarships, and I will tell you, sometimes we have 1 applicant, 3 applicants. So, for particular scholarships. So really, you have very good chances of getting the Trumbull High School scholarships if you're applying for them. We have a class of 500 and we get maybe like 100 to 120 kids in total who apply. And we have really smart, bright kids here who are very eligible for scholarships. So I encourage you, when that scholarship bulletin comes out, fill it out. There is one scholarship I am going to highlight right now. It's called the Weller, Barton L. Weller Scholarship. So I'm just going to put this out there. That's more of like a competition, but it's only open to students in 5 towns, Trumbull being one of them. So again, it's a local applicant pool. And if you have a project that you've done or are interested in doing, it's an independent project that you work on throughout the year. And actually they just upped it. I had it in here for $15,000, but it's actually $18,000 they upped it. So it's an $18,000 scholarship. That's a pretty significant scholarship. And students can do anything they want as long as it's an independent project. So we have some students that are doing things for school anyway. I know like kids at Aqua like build boats and they do really neat things. If you are doing something as part of your SAE or a project for a class and you want to expand and build upon it, you can do that. It can literally be anything. So if you want more information on that, it's going to be given out tomorrow, like individual sheets for how to apply for the Weller Scholarship. But you write a 1 to 2 page proposal. That is due October 6th. That's the reason I'm highlighting it now. The proposal is due, and they select just 5 students to actually work on the project. So if your project gets selected, you have a 1 in 5 chance of winning $18,000. So that's pretty good. So I just wanted to point that out. Any scholarships that are sent to us through the College and Career Center, we post in Naviance, so checking Naviance for scholarships is a good thing to do. Individual colleges, also parents, check with your employers to see what type of scholarships that they may have. A lot of companies will have scholarships, so check with your employers about that. And then obviously there's internet searches. Some of them will make you a little wild. We have on our website a list of the ones that we feel that are better than others, because you could really go down a rabbit hole on the internet. But there are a lot of them out there. Some of them are $500, $1,000. So I have heard numerous times, oh, it's only $1,000. Tuition $74,000, I'm not even gonna bother. You know what though? You start adding up those smaller scholarships, or even just $1,000, I'd take $1,000, I don't know about you all. So definitely the smaller ones, I feel like the kids are a little turned off on, so you might have a better chance because it's a lower applicant pool. Okay, so other considerations, student athletes, you have to register with the NCAA clearinghouse if you haven't done that already. Okay, so you wanna make sure you get your stuff in. If you have an IEP or a 504, you do this process exactly the same way, okay? And you make a choice. If you want to disclose your disability to the college, you can certainly do that at the time that you're applying if you feel like it may help. But you're not required to, so you can wait and you can see where you've been admitted, and then you can present your IEP or 504 to the college once you've been admitted and say these are the services that I am entitled to. Fee waivers are available for students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch, so see your counselor about that if you think you're eligible for fee waivers. Interviews are not all that common, but if you do have the opportunity to get an interview, we encourage you to take it, and counselors, Mrs. Collins, myself, we can meet with kids to do mock interviews and help them practice ahead of time. Social media. So social media is a really, really good way to get an idea of what's happening on college campuses, and if you have a lot of schools that you're interested in, I would encourage you to follow them all so that for the kids, they could see like, oh, I could see myself doing this, I could see myself doing that. Like, if colleges have things that are appealing to them, that's really helpful to help them kind of decipher which one might be the best fit for me. At the same time, I'm hoping by now, I mean, I've been saying this long enough, be smart with what you all are posting on social media, because college reps can see things and look things up, and it's amazing to me sometimes how open student profiles can be with them doing really dumb things. So, just watch your online presence across the board, okay? You really wanna have a footprint that is as positive as possible, and really, just be smart about what you're putting out there, because colleges definitely are looking at that stuff. So, and it's becoming more and more common for colleges to really look at kids' online presence. And, the reps are young. They're, a lot of times the reps are recent graduates. They're people that are in their 20s, early 30s. So, they're in touch with everything, more so probably than the parents are, and they definitely know what's going on. Okay, we are here to help. So your resources, you have your school counselor. We have Mrs. Collins, our college and career counselor. We have those Common App workshops that are coming up during the day. So she is running Common App workshops. If you have senior SEM, you don't have to go because she's coming to all the senior SEMs. So some kids have senior SEM now, some of them have in this grade. For students who have senior SEM now, she's going to be in your classes next week doing workshops and going through the Common App. If you don't have senior SEM and you didn't go to one of the summer Common App workshops, she is running them during lunch waves as well, so you can sign up for that. I would encourage that. The essay review from Sacred Heart. And then we have a comprehensive website with video tutorials and a lot of good information. So we are here to help. If you are stressed out, do not flounder. Please seek us out and we will get you going. Okay? So I'm going to turn it over for questions. For anyone who might be leaving, just please fill out the evaluation, hand in your permission form, and also remember to give your packets back to your children for them to bring to school for the next 2 days. But aside from that, does anyone have any questions?
I got one. Recommendation letters, are those just, are they only looking from teachers and counselors? Do they accept them from like employers, things like that?
Great question. So the question is about letters of recommendation. Are they only from teachers and counselors, and will they accept them from coaches or employers or anyone outside? It depends on the school. So you want to look at what their requirements are. Some of them will actually limit and say, we want one teacher, one counselor, that's it. Others will say you're welcome to submit up to 3, and you can choose kind of who they are. So you have to look with the individual colleges, and if they do accept them, you can have them sent. We don't send them through the school, but they can usually email them to admissions directly. Yes?
You're doing the Common App training during lunch?
Yes. So the Common App workshop.
Students have to go to agriculture, they don't get a lunch period.
So if a student doesn't have senior SEM and they don't have a lunch period, they should come and see Mrs. Collins. We did run them over the summer as well, so we've run them probably 8 times already. So she's doing them in all the senior STEM classes. If if your child is struggling with it and they can't make any of the ones that we're running, they can come and see us and we'll work something out.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
With so many schools going SAT optional, if you are interested in submitting your scores, how does the super score thing work? You know, if you took it twice, and you got a better score on one and the other on the other.
Okay, so the question is about test optional scores and test optional schools and submitting your SAT scores. So what you would do is you would submit all of your scores, and the colleges internally will take the higher ones and they use those for evaluation. So there is a place for you to self-report SAT scores on the Common App. So there might be some schools that you're going to submit your scores for and others that you're not. So in that case, what I would do is for the schools you're not submitting, leave them off, send your Common App, then go in, edit your Common App, add your scores, and then send them to the schools that you're sending. When you're self-reporting. But when you're sending them from College Board, they send everything and then the colleges take and super score internally.
Yes, so I matched my account with documents all year. It said that it matched, and like I was able to it did match, but I didn't put my schools on it. But I already have.
Okay, so this student matched her Common App and Naviance already. Not College Board, Common App and
So,
Naviance.
I have a Common App and a Naviance, and the schools didn't Common App. It said it matched.
Yes, so the students need to, so they are not automatically put from Common App into Naviance. You have to add them in Naviance, and you'll see that on the checklist if you follow. Okay.
I did it, there was no Common App, but right in Common App. I didn't know that was.
Go and see your counselor about it individually and work that out, but yeah. So the same as like the SAT scores, if colleges are asking for different things, you can delete it out. So do what you need for X amount of schools, send them, then change it, go back in, edit your Common App, and then send it to the rest. Any other questions? Yes?
Can a student apply early decision and early action at the same time?
So the question is, can a student apply early decision and early action at the same time?
In different schools?
Yes, they can, because when you're applying early decision, you're not just applying to one college, it's basically saying that you will withdraw your applications from other colleges if you're admitted. So yes, you can do that, and if you get accepted to the early decision, you would just withdraw from the early action or tell them no if you've already heard. Yes?
You said that the email address and Naviance and Common App have to be the same.
Yes.
There's Naviance email, the school email, right? And then on the application, they should put a personal email.
So that's a great question about the email addresses matching. So when you're putting in the their Naviance like login is their Trumbull, but when they match, they can use a personal, whatever's on their Common App. So they're entering another email address there. And that's the other thing. Please, and I didn't say this, use a personal email address when applying to college and everything that you're doing, because once you graduate, your Trumbull email address is going to go away. So use a personal email address, and I would recommend even creating a new one that's like brand new and doesn't have a lot of clutter in it, so that you can see all the things that are being sent to you from the colleges, clearly. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Have a wonderful night, and we're here to help you if you need anything.